Hi everyone, Chris O'Brien here from Run Teach, and I want to talk to you today about step width for trail runners. Now I'm just out on my Friday long run in beautiful Moors Valley Country Park. The hills aren't too bad, they're long but they're not too bad. It's a gorgeous day, about 5 degrees Celsius, but that wind chill factor is, it's quite biting. Anyway, let's talk about trails. So, quite often you'll see on trails that there are lots of ruts around. Okay, so lots of ruts like this, for example, where we can see we've got a rut in the trail and it's quite easy to kind of walk in here. Okay, so this one's not too bad because it's nice and wide, you can get around it, but on some trails you don't have much choice but to think about going through that rut. So why might that be a bad idea? Okay, so if you look at my feet, so to go through here I have to have a very narrow gait. If you have a very narrow gait, that starts to affect your glutes. So we think about our glutes, we're thinking about glute medius is the one that holds us upright. Glute maximus gives us power and helps create stability. If you've got a very narrow stance width, very narrow gait width, then what happens is you can't access that power of that glute max, so therefore you don't get as much stability. So when you're running trails, you want to try and think about still keeping your feet a little bit wider. So it can be a bit difficult to do, but it's really worth the practice. So instead of running through with my feet coming through here, I want to find a way of running on the outside of it. You can use a bit of jumping. You can just widen your feet as you go through. So instead of being really narrow, you can try and get to the edges of the rut so that you're still keeping a bit of width between your feet. Okay? Now there's going to be times where that's just not possible and you have to run through that rut, and that's absolutely fine. So when you're not on the trail or when you're on other parts of the trail, start training for a slightly wider step width. Okay, and way to do that, a really easy way to do that is to find a line. Start off by running on the line, so 1 foot on, 1 foot on, 1 foot on. See how that feels in terms of your balance. Do that for maybe 20 steps. Then run with your feet either side of the line or on the edges of the line, so you have a little bit of gap, okay, between your feet. And what we're looking for, maybe an inch or so. So that kind of width there, we would say hip width, but that's not necessarily realistic. So we want to have a little bit of a gap and then run like that and see the difference that you have with your stability in that glute complex. Okay, so summary. If you're out the trails, if you can, try and avoid those ruts, because when I do my running assessments, I see lots of people who have a very narrow step width, and it's because they run in those ruts on trails. That narrow step width can affect your ability to use your glute max, which affects your ability to have power, but also affects your ability to balance properly. Okay, so really important to train outside of those ruts if you can, so that when you're racing, you've got good balance, you've got good agility across those ruts rather than always going inside of them. See you next time.